Hey everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with my July wrap-up. In the month of July I participated in the Book Junkie Trials where I was supposed to read 5 books that all fulfilled different prompts. In the Book Junkie Trials I was a bard. So let's just kind of hop right into this. The first book I read for the Book Junkie Trials was Malice by John Gwynne. This book fulfilled the prompt, which is to read a book with war or political themes. Malice is a fantasy book, but it doesn't have a strong magic system. None of the characters that I can think of had like magical abilities. It's more that mystical things happen, but not caused by any one person. It's very political based. This book gave me very strong Game of Thrones vibes. There are a lot of characters like in Game of Thrones. There are wolves like in Game of Thrones. You have a very similar, I think, political structure and to how like the kingdom is broken up. I gave this book 4 stars. Even though there are a lot of characters and at times, especially at the beginning, it was hard to keep track of who was who. There was always something happening in every chapter. It was very action-packed, and as the characters came together, it was a lot easier to keep track of who was doing what and what role they all played in the story. I don't want to go into who each individual character is because there are a lot of them. All of those characters are kind of coming to this battle. It's basically a battle of good and evil. You have the good side, which is kind of all up for interpretation with the god Eloin, and then you have the evil side with Azeroth, and everybody thinks that they're kind of fighting for the good side, but as you're reading about what's going on, you start to second guess, wait, who's really the good and who's the bad. I'm really excited to continue on with this series. There are 3 more books, I think, in this series. I'm very intrigued to see what happens next. It kind of ends on an interesting little cliffhanger, so I will continue on with this series at some point. After Malice, I picked up The Phantom of the Opera. This fulfilled the prompt to read an atmospheric or horror book, and as a bard, I had to read a book with poetry or musical themes, so I figured an opera would count. Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I don't speak French. I gave 3.5 stars. I enjoyed the story as I was reading it, but anytime I would try and sit and think about what it was about or what happened, I couldn't really summarize it. You are at an opera house in France, and the opera house appears to be haunted. People are always seeing this phantom or this ghost they call the opera ghost. You have this love story between Christine Daae and Raoul. He thinks that she loves him, but he can tell that she's kind of holding back, and so he wants to know why. And so Christine kind of tells him that she's been studying opera. So Christine is an opera singer. She says she's been taking lessons from this angel of music, and this angel of music has kind of forbidden her from having any relationships other than the relationship with them. And then Christine goes missing, and they have to figure out what happens to her. It was pretty, there was a lot going on towards the last third of the book. A lot of it leading up to it was just a lot of dialogue between Christine and Raoul. One of my favorite things about this book was the way that Gaston Leroux addressed the readers. So there would be passages where he would say, oh, this is going on, but hey reader, you already knew that because you're reading this story, which I liked. I liked that little nod to the fact that he knows that we are reading the story. Overall, I enjoyed reading it. I gave it 3.5 stars. After Phantom of the Opera, I picked up Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder by Joanne Fluke. This is the first book in the Hannah Swenson series. This fulfilled the prompt for an indulgent read. The Hannah Swenson series is one of my favorite series. It's just so easy to read. Hannah, the main character, is just an easy to personable character. I give it 5 stars. simply because of my enjoyment level of the book. If I were to start critiquing it based on, writing style and literary merit, it would not be a 5-star read, but I rate my books based on how I enjoyed them, and that's what's important to me, so 5 stars. Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder, you are introduced to Hannah Swinson. Hannah Swinson lives in Lake Eden, Minnesota. She has recently moved back there after her father has passed away, and she has opened a baking shop, a cookie shop called the Cookie Jar. She goes into work early to get started baking the cookies, and she sees her regular milk delivery man on her way into work, waves at him, says hello. A couple hours later, Hannah goes into the parking lot to see why he is running late, because the delivery man is never late with her milk delivery, and so she wants to check on him, make sure everything's okay, and Hannah finds him shot dead in his delivery truck. Hannah's brother-in-law works for the police department and is trying to be promoted to detective, and basically his boss says, if you help solve this case, I will promote you. Bill asks Hannah to kind of keep an ear out while people are talking at her shop, see if she hears anything that might be helpful in solving this murder, because Lake Eden is a small town and everybody talks and somebody is bound to know something. Hannah decides to take the kind of listen to people's conversations a step further, and she kind of decides to do a little investigating of her own. I think this is a great introduction to a great cozy mystery series. Hannah is very relatable. She's, self-conscious about her body, and she's trying to stay on top of her bills while opening while running this business. She has an interesting relationship with her sister and with her mom. Her mom's always trying to set her up with somebody, and Hannah's kind of content not being in a relationship. Do meet her love interest, Norman, who she's at the end of this book is just kind of trying to figure out what's going on with that, and then a potential second love interest in a detective that is brought in to work on the case, Mike. So it's a great setup to a great series. I highly recommend this series for quick reads. So I read Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder right before I went on my little mini vacay to Lake George. And then on the way to Lake George, I decided there's a short story at the end of Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder, and I decided to read that. It's just a quick, I think maybe not even 150 pages. So I read this on the drive up. Short story, Candy for Christmas. It's just a cute little Christmas story. So one morning, Hannah goes into work around Christmas time, and she notices that something doesn't seem right. All of the dishes are done. The shop seems more tidy than it was when she left it, and she thinks somebody might have snuck in and slept in her shop and cleaned it up in the morning when they went to leave as a thank you for letting them stay there. And so the next day, or a couple days later, Hannah and Norman are driving home from a date, and Hannah says, "Hey Norman, can you swing by the cookie jar? I just want to check on something." And they end up discovering a young teenage girl sleeping inside the cookie jar, and Hannah wants to use her detective skills to kind of figure out what's going on with Candy, this girl that they found sleeping in her shop. So it's a cute little short story with cute Christmas vibe. Then I picked up, while we were on the island, my intimidating read for the Book Junkie Trials, which was Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. This book, it's short, it's 200 pages, but it's about a fairly intimidating subject, which is astrophysics. And I was never great at science in school. It was not my strongest subject. I haven't taken a science class since my required science classes in college, which I took my first couple of semesters. So it's been a hot minute since I've done anything with science. Neil deGrasse Tyson in this book is trying to give just basic knowledge of astrophysics. You might not finish this and be an astrophysicist. You probably won't, but you do learn some interesting things. What I really loved about how Neil deGrasse Tyson wrote, and I've marked a couple things, is he explained some pretty difficult topics and subjects in terms, he tried to describe it and explain it using things that are relatable. So he's trying to explain what a pulsar is. And so he says, to picture a pulsar, imagine the mass of the sun packed into a ball the size of Manhattan. So you can kind of imagine the sun and then the size of Manhattan. And then he says, if that's hard to do, then maybe it's easier if you imagine stuffing about 1 billion elephants into a chapstick casing. So he's using things that like are easy to picture for the everyday human. He also injects some good humor. There's a couple footnotes in his book, and some of them are like actual footnotes where he's referencing like an article and he's giving you the information for the article. It says, and without violating momentum laws, you cannot spontaneously levitate and hover above the ground, whether or not you are seated in the lotus position. So then there's a footnote that says, you could, in principle, perform this stunt if you managed to let forth a powerful and sustained exhaust of flatulence. So I thought that was funny because books don't normally talk about farting. I think he does a good job of trying to make astrophysics more approachable for the everyday human. I'm not walking away with this with all sorts of knowledge on astrophysics, but I did learn some interesting tidbits. I learned why LED light bulbs are better than like, what type of light bulb am I thinking of? Incandescent light bulbs. And I learned why salt lamps are great. There are random tidbits that you will walk away with, and maybe if the subject of astrophysics comes up, you will have some base knowledge to maybe have a semi-educated conversation about it. So these are the 4 books plus 1 short story that I finished in the month of July. It was not a great reading month as far as the amount of books that I completed are, but July was a very busy month for us with weddings and holidays and vacations, so I'm pretty pleased with this. Let me know down below if you participated in the Book Junkie Trials, if you completed all of the quests, because I didn't. You did not participate in the Book Junkie Trials. I know that there were a few other readathons going on throughout the month. Let me know you did participate in a readathon, what readathon that was. Let me know what your favorite book in the month of July was that you completed, and let me know your thoughts if you have read any of these on them, because I would love to talk more about any of these books in the comments down below. Anyways, until next time, happy reading. Bye.